know what is what, but we understand from the children of Israel, if we understand the Hebrew of it, the deeper meaning of it, that if we are restored and established in our lives because Elohim prevails in our lives, he's first in our lives, or if we are restored and established because we recognize those times that we begin to wrestle against Elohim and we stop ourselves and make teshuvah, then we are Bnei Yisrael. And this is something that is difficult for some people to grasp because everybody's stuck on this thing that you have to be the children of Israel, you have to be the Jews and all this. And the notes from last Tuesday have an explanation of all this on the second page. So again, we're considering the spiritual aspects of these verses, not the physical concepts that bind us in historical and dogmatic change. Wow, I could have just read that and saved myself a lot of breath. If we accept this ketubah, bread of life, that is the word of Yahuwah, we will live beyond this physical existence. If any man eats of this bread, he shall live forever. If we can grasp this, then the phrase, the bread that I will give him is my flesh, is an ancient Hebrew wedding vow that the groom makes to the bride. He offers her a piece of bread and says, my body, my flesh. He's saying that I will give physically to support you. I will nourish you, protect you, and provide for your needs. Yahusha would give his life for the life of the world, would give this for the life of the world. The house of Yehuda and the house of Israel and the stranger that resides among them, who will believe and receive the ketubah, the Torah of Yahuwah Elohim, and accept this wedding vow. Why did he come back? Why did he die? So that the house of Israel could come back into the fold, so that there would be a full 12 tribes, so that the kingdom of Yahuwah Elohim would be restored, okay, and restored fully. The Talmudim went out and collected 12 fragments of bread, or 12 baskets of the fragments of the bread. And it's from the scenario that we read earlier, we understand that he came back to bring the two kingdoms together, but he also came back to bring the original two kingdoms together, which was the kingdom of Yahuwah Elohim and the kingdom of the Adam, to bring them back together like they were in the beginning. Yahuwah gave himself totally to the relationship at the top, illustrating for us that we too must die to our carnal side so that we can enter fully into a spiritual relationship with Yahuwah, our Elohim. Kind of gives you a clue as to what is to transpire when we get to this point of studying this crucifixion part, this dying part, this restoration part that occurs towards the end of Yochanan. We'll understand how this applies to us. But now we're looking at this proposal thing. Our dogma and our traditions have perverted this beautiful and ancient Hebraic tradition because of a lack of understanding. And this is clearly illustrated in verse 52. The Yahudim therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? What are they looking at? They're looking at a literal interpretation. They want a literal, topical interpretation of why it says this. And this literal interpretation carried over all the way to the creation of the Universal Catholic Church. And then they had to come up with some idea of something called the Eucharist, where the bread and the wine actually come to life as a piece of human steak and human blood, so to speak. Okay? So, there we go. So a literally minded person who is bound by their dogma and traditions will never grasp the significance that Yahusha is doing in these verses. So let's continue with verses 53 through 58. Then Yahusha said to them, verily, verily, I say to you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, literally, B'nai Adam, or Ha-Adam, and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me, and I in him. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eats me, even he shall live by me. So right now, I imagine that a lot of people are freaking out, turning all shades of white, and saying, we're going back to the Stone Age. We're going to be cannibals. I mean, I realize the Stone Age wasn't that long ago. So, what does all this mean? If we understand certain portions within the Torah, we're going to be able to grasp this. But let's consider this verse, that he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him. What is he saying? You have to take the word of Elohim into you so that you can dwell within Elohim. Okay? We have to have it inside so that we can dwell fully within the house of Elohim. Okay? So anyway, blood represents life in the Torah. When the groom offered the glass of wine to his bride, he would say, this is my blood. I am offering my very life's essence to you. Themselves and sprinkle their blood on a covenant marker, and then all the blood would be mixed together to illustrate that all the parties were now one. They were considered a single family unit. I've got my neighbor over here that's having trouble with these people from the other county. I'm having trouble with these people over here, but I'm not strong enough to beat them off on my own, and he's not strong enough. We're going to come together, and we're going to set up some stones, and we're going to shake hands. We're going to have some food, cook out. I'm going to cut myself. He's going to cut himself. We're going to drop it on the rocks. We're going to mix the blood together. And now, after I say I do and he says I do, we are now family. And if anybody from over there messes with him, I'm going to go over there and help him to bat them off. And if anybody messes with me, he's going to come over here and help me to bat them off. I don't have to worry about him stabbing me in the back, because a covenant is supposed to be a permanent relationship. It's not like a contract where you can renegotiate a contract. The Torah is a contract, so to speak, because, well, not even that. The covenant of Elohim is the same covenant. It has just been amended throughout the ages. The exact same thing that we were supposed to do all along is what we're still supposed to be doing. But we couldn't grasp how to do it over here. So Elohim gives Abraham a little bit more information on how to do it. And we forget how to do it, so he gives Moses and the children of Israel a little bit more information and a written document on how to do it. We can't grasp that. We go into captivity. Yahushua comes and he says, look, here is the ketubah. This is the document that explains to you what the covenant is. If you'll do what it says, then we're going to remain in covenant. Now he's saying, I'm going to put my blood on the rock. Are you willing to add yours to mine? Because I'm willing to do this fully for you. That's the Elohim part. That's the authority of Yahuwah part. But he was also human, so that whether I said I do or not, he's still going to put down the blood of the human part as well. Both parties are represented by Yahusha. See what I'm saying? Okay. Glad I got that off my chest. All right. So the groom offering the blood to his bride represents an act of covenant bonding. For the bride to accept, she was saying yes to becoming one family under one house. Why do we have a beautiful chuppah? Because this represents the concept. The chuppahs are traditionally red. We have them in all kinds of lovely different colors. The red of it is for one reason and one reason only. They are coming under the blood of a covenant to be one house in one promise because they have mixed their blood together. He gives her the wine, she gives him the wine, they drink it together, they smash that cup because no one else is going to drink from that covenant cup, and that's why we break the glass. Not all this other nonsense that the Talmud wants to tell us 100 different reasons why we smash the glass. Anyway, thus the verse, he that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him. The bride and the groom are now one household, share one life, not two separate lives. Everybody with me? This is nothing more than an ancient Hebraic wedding contract. Covenant, so to speak. Not even a contract. Ketubah, saying if you agree, then these are the rules of the covenant. And we're going to come together. So consider verse 57. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eats me, even he shall live by me. So, a lot of stuff is happening that if we don't understand the ancient ways, we're going to miss. The son's estate was built on the father's land, as it was the son's responsibility to take care of his parents when they became aged. This is why the son, after he got married, they consummated the marriage, the wife would be left in the care of a comforter, usually the son's best friend, and he would provide for her needs and make sure she was okay, while the son went away to his father's house to prepare a place for her. Then he would come back and get her and bring her home to the father's estate, which on that estate has many rooms, has many mansions, as King Jimmy has to say for it. So the son lived according to the father's authority and represented his father's authority until this time. I live by the Father. The son, however, would rule over his own household, and once the bride accepted the bread and the wine, she would submit to the authority of the son, her husband, whose authority was also that of the Father. So he that eats me, even he shall live by me. If we understand this ancient marital agreement or arrangement, then we can understand the deeper spiritual significance that this represents for us. If I accept the bread and the wine, then I have to accept the rules of the house. Yahusha represents the word. I have to accept the word of the house. I have to live according to the ketubah, which is the Torah, if I'm to remain with the son on the father's estate. Otherwise, if I commit adultery, give me a get. If I say I didn't do it, and he doesn't believe me, then I have to drink water mixed with dirt. Anyway, different story. I think we covered that last year. So, had to bring that up. So. But we see the difference in equating the physical provision of manna, dogma and tradition, that simply fills our physical hunger, and the bread of life that is the Torah that fills our spiritual hunger. So consider verse 58. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eats of this bread will live forever. The bread that comes down from Yahuwah our Elohim, his word, cannot be compared to the physical bread that only fills our physical needs. We cannot equate a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim with some dogma or tradition. Your fathers did eat manna and are dead. We must become spiritually joined to Yahuwah our Elohim, something that Yahusha accomplished for us at the Tav. We must, however, be able to see past the superhighway of religion so that we can see the narrow path of a true relationship with Yahuwah our Elohim that is hidden among the thorns and the thistles. And consider that the fact that the Torah was given at Sinai, a place that means thorns and thistles. So we have to be able to get through the thorns and thistles so that we can find that narrow path that leads to where we need to go. So if we will consume the spiritual nourishment of the Torah, then the phrase, "He that eats of this bread shall live forever," applies to us. We have a choice to accept the proposal according to the guidelines of the Ketubah, or to not accept it and reject it. Some will accept the offer because some won't, because they don't understand. And perhaps they don't want to understand. And that's another sad thing. But some people are not going to leave their belief system, regardless of how messed up it might be, to enter into a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim that's based on his Torah. Because what will my friends think? What will my family think? What will, all this other stuff that goes along with that. So either they don't understand or they don't want to. So keep that in mind as we look at verses 59 through 61. These things said he in the synagogue in Capernaum. And we remember that Capernaum comes from two words, Kepher and Naam, that means, in essence, it means an attempt. Well, it means a village of comfort, but it also represents this hiding of our desire to show regret or to make teshuvah. So, are you willing to perceive, discern, understand, obey, and apply the guidelines of the Ketubah, the Torah? Or are you still trying to cover up your need to make teshuvah with the false comfort of dogma and tradition? Verse 60. Therefore, many of his Talmudim, when they have heard this, said, "This is a hard saying, who can hear it?" Are you still stuck in a literal-minded, physical bondage that does not allow you to see the spiritual significance of what a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim is? 61. Then Yahusha knew in himself that his Talmudim murmured at it. He said to them, "Does this offend you?" Does it? Is the thought of being able to shamar, guard, treasure, preserve, and observe the Torah of Yahuwah, the ketubah between us as the bride and as the groom, is that offensive to you because it doesn't agree with the dogma, with our dogma and tradition? This study illustrates that we must become familiar with the Torah and also with the thought processes and the tradition of the ancient Hebrews. These verses were badly interpreted from a Greco-Roman viewpoint, and as a result, what we call communion today holds no real meaning to those who partake in it. What you get is, remember now, before you take communion, remember that Paul said that if you take this without the right heart, you're going to get sick or you're going to die. But what does the communion itself mean? Why do I have to take it with a good heart? What am I doing in the process of this communion? So we have to know why we do what we do and not simply do it because everyone else is doing it. So this study will hopefully make us look deeply at where our relationship with Yahuwah, our Elohim, is, and force us to ask, am I ready to commit myself to the ketubah and accept the groom's proposal? Boy, I got to spit all that out. Look, it only took us 2 hours. So, I guess with that we can kind of start getting ready for the second part of what's going to go on here, is why everybody wanted to leave and what all that was about. But until then, we can say that grooviness has been achieved.